great classical pianist should be serious, emotionally raw, full of unrequited angst and longing. Right? Well, not always. Some of the funniest people I know are classical pianists, and probably one of the biggest jokers in all of classical piano history is... no, not him. I meant... no, not him either. I'm talking about... Mozart is notoriously one of the best comedians of classical music, and a lot of his piano pieces were written with the express intent of bringing joy and laughter to his listeners.
Mozart was all about trying to figure out how to please his entire audience, from the most learned connoisseur to the most amateurish, somebody who maybe didn't know anything at all about music.
But how can we as performers make the audience laugh through just the power of our pianism? How can we bring Mozart's humor to our audience?
It's actually physically very difficult to do, but hilarious if you get it right.
Well, today we're going to try to answer that question with the help of Tonebase artist and Juilliard faculty member Orli Shaham. She is going to give us her insights on performing one of Mozart's most humorous piano pieces,
the alla turca movement. Probably the most famous third movement, but one that's actually tricky to play, maybe because it's so popular, we all know it. And there are some crazy recordings out there. I urge you to seek out Glenn Gould playing this movement. It's wild.
This lesson is just one part of Shaham's full course on Mozart piano sonatas, which is available on the Tonebase Premium platform. And this is just one of many courses on Mozart, Beethoven, and all of your favorite piano composers, as well as fundamental courses for helping you upgrade your technique, master your musicality, and ideas for how you can make your audience swoon through your piano playing. Be sure to check the link in the description for more info, or click right up here. And if you want to stay up to date with more fun and informative piano content here on YouTube, be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We're getting closer and closer to 200,000 subscribers, and we appreciate each and every one of you so much. And be sure to share this video as well with any piano-loving people you know in your life, or anyone who needs just a little Mozartian joy and mischief. So without further ado, let's get this party started. I am afraid that may haunt your dreams forever now.
I feel like for him, the third movement really is often the kind of the end of the party. It's the place where you could start breaking the rules. Form is not so important. You can put things in registers and in ways that you maybe wouldn't have done before. Maybe be a little more rude, a little more extreme with your dynamics in a way that isn't appropriate for just everybody. They are supposed to be sort of funny. They're supposed to have a lighthearted quality to them. In this case, the Turkish nod, especially following the success of the abduction from the Seraglio, this was really popular at the time. We look at it now and we think, oh, it's sort of silly cultural appropriation or whatever. But this was hip in Vienna at the time, right? The Janissary bands were coming in. Everybody was excited about this. It got people gathering around and listening, hearing these different percussive instruments come in with the music. And that's what he's trying to capture here. This was one of a set of sonatas that were published for money, that he actually knew were going to go out to the public. So he's trying to please the public. He's trying to give them what they wanted. And you need to kind of lean into that aspect of the sonata. I also think you need to lean into the funny part of it. Even the theme of this is actually just a turn, is just, right? It's just an arpeggio that's been decorated. And frankly, the left hand, here's the harmony. Literally just hasn't left the A minor chord this entire time yet. But he's just outlining an arpeggio, and he's doing it in a way that you can enliven. It doesn't need to sound staid, even though there's a side of it that's kind of square. It is kind of a square type of piece. Even this opening part, it's just a suggestion. And then it continues a little bit more. So if you were doing... We talked about the contour, that it grows. The same thing with this phrase. It can grow up to that top. And what about that left hand? If you think of a kind of a folk band playing, there's somebody's doing that, the bass bit, they're going to so enjoy these notes. Like that's their part and they love it. That's the guy who really just enjoys that bit that they really get to bring out. So enliven it that way. these can have a nice lightness to them. And this, again, the separating that left hand into the two different voices that it is, right? And this middle section, so simple, just a little bit of C major, back in A minor, and then we go again, just a little turn. And then the moment of magic, right here. Everything else has been as simple can be in terms of folk music, and we'd have this one surprise chord that comes out of nowhere. It's marked forte in some editions. I don't know if that actually comes from Mozart, but something about that moment needs to be highlighted. And I think the playful nature of this movement means you could actually be pretty playful with tempo here. I don't think it needs to be insanely metronomic because it has a metronomic nature anyway. Then this A minor section ends, we get finally the forte. So although we had a little forte on this, that whole opening was piano. And remember how these movements are really funny? It's only funny if you keep it piano. If you give away too much forte, other than just for this 1 second, if you give away forte in this opening section, the next section loses what it does, which is this glorious opening in A major with some serious bass subwoofing. These. Right, this feeling of like complete instrument range in one little gesture. And that left hand is actually very tricky. I find that in this movement, that's almost the hardest bit, is to really give that feeling of a number of percussive instruments playing at once. This kind of Janissary band sound. It helps if you're thinking about upbeats in this movement. So the opening, and one, and one, and one. Same thing here, and one. So if you can think of that feeling of how it's moving forward, right? How that upbeat goes, I think that's very helpful. When we get to our middle section, which is actually really the first place we've had a major difference. The virtuosity of that, right? The sudden fingers moving fast. You can imagine the street performance, and suddenly the spotlight comes on the one performer who's just got great fingers moving really fast through things. So it doesn't have to be incredibly fast to have that feeling, that quality. And it helps if you really articulate, right? A lot of movement of the fingers so that you really can hear each note coming out. Even here. And by the way, this moment, you can lean on that just a little bit. You can take a little time. And the answer. Right, so the first one raises the question, the other one kind of answers it. Then we repeat. And then when we come back to this again, if you did it right the first time, you'll have the integrity of a kind of sound world that you can just recall at that moment. You can find it again. And then we come back to our theme, and it's interesting, he doesn't write any decorations, but you can do all sorts of things. You can ornament when you repeat, of course. I think you can really play, especially in this movement, I like to play around with dynamics or voicing. So am I bringing out that bass? You know, I can play around with that idea, or am I really harping on the other side of the left hand? Is that too much? Is there some mixture of that maybe makes more sense? Is there something you could do with the right hand to shape it differently, to just different dynamics, maybe defy expectation? I'm just giving you an idea that, this is a place to be playful and you can do all sorts of things. I like to add a little, just a little something there so that something cute's happening. But you can also just choose how you want to work with this phrase. The first two can both be loud. And you can come down for the minor. Or you can do an echo in each one. But so long as you have that flexibility, that sense of play, it's going to work for you. And then when you get to here, the same thing applies. If you've got that left hand ready, little pedal on each of those arpeggios to really give it a little bit of extra reverb. You can create the same thing. And then you get to this ending, which is so glorious. It's like he's just pulled out all the stops. But even to us, so many years later, this feels very homemade. It's so different than what we encountered in the first and second movements. This is clearly a performance out on the street, as opposed to one in a theater.
Thanks so much for joining us today. And remember, you can watch this lesson in full, as well as many other lessons on Mozart, Beethoven, and Chopin, and Liszt, and everybody that we all love on the Tonebase Premium platform. Be sure to check the link in the description below, or click right up here for more information and to get started on your piano playing journey. Also, if you haven't done it already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm Robert Fleiss from Tonebase, and I'll see you next time.
See, this is a bust of young Wolfgang himself. This was my birthday present when I was 7 years old. You'll see he's acquired a chipped nose over all those years, but I think they can do fabulous things with nose jobs these days. So we needn't worry, he's doing just fine.